This message was meant to find you if you are trying to open up your spiritual abilities or your healer self or your ancient self, and you're trying to awaken all of this within you. What can be stopping you is literally a pattern of your brain, the way that your brain works. And let me explain this for you now. You might be able to put yourself in a little bit of a category here so that you can work on the healing. So the way that our brain works is that it develops a pattern of survival. So when you're a child, no matter what kind of childhood you had, you developed a way in which you would react to things so that you could survive. Okay? Some of us have had extremely terrible abuses in our lives, and we developed certain ways in which we survived them. Some of you had an easier upbringing, but there were still things that were triggering you over the years. Maybe this was with siblings, maybe this was with parents or grandparents, whatever situation, maybe adoptive parents as well. So how does the brain pattern itself? It goes into these survival mechanisms. And I've talked about this in great detail in semester 1 of my academy, Light Leaders Academy. But if you don't understand how you react, then you may not be able to heal yourself properly, and therefore you may feel that every psychic exercise that you do or healing that you have is not working. So let's break this down really quickly for you. Okay, so one of the behaviors is people pleasing, and we call this having a fawn response, F-A-W-N, fawn response, which means that you will just go out of your way to help other people. You will go out above and beyond what you need to do in order to make sure there are no waves. You're not making any waves, you're not upsetting anyone. You are doing more and more and more in order to please other people, so that then you might be able to do what you need to do, right? So you develop this because of having to be perhaps the adult in situations, or perhaps you had to parent your own parents, right? So you've developed a way in which you can do it by making sure everybody is happy. This moves into your everyday life. It moves into your jobs, your occupation, where you will go above and beyond. Maybe it doesn't work and then you feel like crap. So you're like, okay, I have to work harder. Then people will recognize what I'm doing here, right? And that doesn't work. And this ends in frustration. It ends up in a blockage to your abilities, and it even ends up with a blockage to your manifestations and money and the flow, right? Because you've developed a mechanism of defense that pushes you to do more than you need to do in order to be recognized. When that does not happen, you do even more until you're exhausted. There is more about each of these little things that I'm telling you about, but I'm just going to keep going with it. So that is a fawn response, a people please, you first energy. It ends up in frustration and depletion. It can end up in depression, sadness, suicidal ideation. It can end up in all of these things because the pattern of your brain is, if I'm going to be okay, I need to do more, maybe more than anybody else. Second thing that can come up for certain people, and you can have a couple of these things as your mechanism, something that you taught yourself. So as a survival tactic, you might have been someone who just freezed up. Okay, there's an issue going on, there's a drama, there's violence, there's something unfolding. You withdraw, you might go off into your room when you were young, just sit there and be very, very quiet and wait for it to dissipate, and then you might come out like nothing has happened, not wanting to draw attention to whatever that problem was in case it starts again. This can lead to disassociation, okay? It can lead to depression. and never leaving the home or being afraid to leave the home. Maybe gaming, habits with gaming, because that is a reality that you can control. You know what's coming up. You might be the sort of person, if you had a freeze response, that you might watch the same programs over and over and over again, because you know how things are going to finish. And even though you might have had some depression, you still might have also suffered from anxiety. So if you know what's coming up, you feel comfortable. Okay? So if any of these ring true for you, okay, start writing those things down. Third thing that can come up is a fight response. Okay? You're ready to deck somebody. You might be the kid at school that got into fights. Okay? Because you were so frustrated within yourself that you couldn't fight the person that might have been causing you harm, or your mother or your father harm. Okay, so you might have grown up in a violent situation, or you grew up without the protecting parent, which is considered the father. So when you don't grow up with that father energy, you feel like you have to be tough. So you grew up tough. Okay, if anyone wants to start something with you, you are quite willing to settle it. But that fight, that internal anger, okay, it's sadness as well. It's pain. You might also go through physical symptoms of discomfort because you're so rigid, okay? And you feel like you have to be tough in order to survive. You also might have things that are connected with your joints, or arthritis, or fibromyalgia. You might have been diagnosed with some nervous disorders. Now, the other, or the last type of mechanism, and all of these can be interchanged with each other, is flight. There's some kind of problem, you're out the door, okay? Start to get into a confrontation with somebody, you're out. You leave, you have to get in the car and drive away. You don't want to be involved in a confrontation. It has ended badly in one way or another when you were young, and it's something that you don't want to deal with. Perhaps you had a confronting parent, and therefore, or someone who was strict, okay, or someone who didn't understand your emotions or your deep emotions. So having a confrontation, it means that you're withdrawing, sometimes with disassociating more completely, until you feel the threat is over, and then you might come back in like nothing has happened, okay? You have deeper sensitivities with confrontation. You don't want it, you don't like it, therefore your boundaries are pretty low as well. You put other people before yourself, usually. You could even have that fawn reaction where you're a people pleaser too. Okay, you're at the shopping center, you first. Okay, oh, let me get out of your way, basically, is what you're saying. Now, these things block your abilities because they're constantly patterning around in your being. So it's really important that you start to identify the inner critic within you and start to learn that that was developed at a time when there was imminent danger, and now there isn't. So you want to react differently because you want to be confident, you want to be strong, you want to be healed and move into the next chapter of your life. Something that I'm very good at working with you on is listening to what you're telling me and creating a report for you so you can see exactly how you've responded and reacting and what that has done to your physical being and where we go from here. It's really, really important. So as you're moving through your journey, really start to take the time to heal that inner critic within you, understand yourself from a loving perspective, and even in many, many cases, re-parenting yourself in order to flip the brain into new patterns. Sending you so many blessings. Thanks so much for being here. I hope this was helpful. Bye for now.